Right. About to share with you guys a really cool story. And the funny thing is, I was telling the story on the flight out to Boston last week to another Owners Club member about this deal where I held it together. This deal was going to make $1 million in profit, or it really was going to add $1 million in like net worth to my portfolio. Huge deal. You guys have heard me talk about this deal a lot, right? But it was almost the deal that never happened, and it almost got blown up. And I want to tell you guys the story of how I held this deal together on a plane ride and closed it right as we were touching down. Hey guys, I'm gonna experiment with this every week and try this like Q&A session to where like you guys can come on. I'm gonna tell you this story, but if you guys have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'll answer them as we go, or maybe I'll answer some at the end. But this is also an opportunity for you guys to ask any question you have, real estate related. Doesn't have to be real estate though. Could be family, could be coaching kids. Many of my many of my biggest passions we're going to talk about. Okay, so let's tell you guys the story. So anyway, Owners Club. So I joined this. It's a high level mastermind with Pace Morby. It's really of a community of owners that he started, right? So the spring retreat was last June, and it was in Arizona. I was initially not going to go because I had just got back from another mastermind the week before, and it's a summertime. We're already making trips. I'm about to go on a trip to Wyoming. I was like bouncing all around. I'm like, man, is it really, do I really have the time to get there? And thank God I went, right? Because I remember thinking in my head, the other thing I was balancing as I was raising money for this 45 unit deal that we're talking about. And I still had about, I don't know, at the time, I don't know, maybe I still had a chunk of money to raise for this thing. And I was about potentially going to lose this deal. And I was working with private money lenders, working with investors. And it's always a stress, right? When you're trying to put together the deal and get everybody to bring their funds, right? It's never fun. If you're a capital raiser, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. But I thought in my mind, I remember talking to my wife about it. I'm like, I've got to raise the money for this deal because it's a once in a lifetime deal. But in order to close it, I got to raise this money. So I'm like, well, you know what? I know there's not a better place than to go to Owners Club with all these other investors, all these other like-minded people in it. And even if I can't raise it from those people, they might be able to have a connection to help me raise this last bit of money. Okay, so I made the decision to go to Owners Club to close this deal. And that you're guys going to see why this is relevant, right? So I get there, I'm still raising the money. I'm like literally actively networking, finding what other people need, telling them what my needs are, right? One of the best parts of doing masterminds is this exact thing. Okay. But while I'm there and I'm raising the last little bit of money, I'm actually getting some traction to raise the money. Well, I'll never forget it. Like I was up, we had like a late night of networking. We were at this like incredible hotel, the Wrigley Hotel in Phoenix or Scottsdale, if you guys ever been there. So we're up there having a great time networking. Well, man, I wake up the next morning and we stayed up late, right? So I got up, worked out, hadn't gone through my emails, and I just opened my email. And on that note, man, I'm so thankful to work in Central Time to where I can be ahead of that. I cannot imagine waking up in Pacific Time and everybody's 2 hours ahead of you, right? Or heaven forbid, 3 hours ahead of Pacific. But anyway, so I'm behind. I'm literally looking at my phone right as I'm heading to the conference, and I look at it, and it's an email. Actually, it was my assistant. She goes, Casey, I don't know if you saw the email from the seller. So literally my seller sends me an email like 3 days before closing this 45 unit deal, which is going to make me potentially $1 million in net worth or add that much to my net worth like instantly. She emails, she goes, deals off, Casey. Because the thing was, the day before, I'm actually the last of this. We're going through like the final closing steps and going through logistics, right? And she was going to take a second lien position on this deal to where I could actually raise money in first, and she was going to take a second. She was good with it. She signed it. She knew exactly what she was doing, right? But she didn't know how much it was for, right? And we were still raising the money. And in hindsight, looking back, I should have told her this is what we're raising for. But I told her I didn't know the number because I didn't know the rehab budget. Anyway, so it turns out when she finds out the number that we're raising, she's like, I'm not going in second position. And I'm like, seller, I won't use her name, but seller, you told me you would do this. We agreed to it. You signed the contract. She's like, I don't care. I'm not closing. I'm not doing it. Like literally going to blow up the entire deal. So I'm like, well, crap. So it goes into negotiation, right? I don't want her to walk away. This is going to add $1 million in net worth, right? I can't walk away from this deal. So I'm negotiating with her, going back and forth, making several calls, trying to negotiate something. I'm like, maybe I give you more interest. Maybe how do we work this out, right? Typical negotiation. Well, anyway, so we don't quite solve it. We're working through it. But anyway, so flash forward to that morning, I look at my phone and open up the email, and it's the seller. She's like, deal is off. I'm canceling it. I'm terminating the deal. I'm not selling the property to you. I've already working with another real estate agent. They're going to help sell the property. I'm out. We're not. Just the biggest gut punch ever. I'm like, are you kidding me? She just blew this up. But if you guys know me, like, some people might have given up, but I'm like, no way. First off, she's not giving up. First of all, I'm not giving up. Second of all, she signed a contract. And fortunately, maybe not so fortunately, I'd already been through a deal just like this on another multifamily a couple years ago when a seller tried to bail on me. Even though we were under contract, she wouldn't perform. And unfortunately, guys, sometimes you have to literally sue people to perform on the contract to sell the house to you. So I had to do that before. I went through depositions, went through this whole lawsuit. We ended up settling on the deal. Had to pay way more for the property than I wanted to, but we closed it, and it's one of my best assets in Laramie, Wyoming, still to this day, right? But it taught me a lot. It taught me through, hey, what happens if you go to a lawsuit and you have to sue somebody to perform? So instantly, I call my attorney. Fortunately, it's my brother. I'm like, Clay, here's the situation. And I'm like, this is what we do, right? I've got to basically get my funds at the title company, tell them ready to close. And is there anything else I can do? And he goes, that's exactly what you do, Casey. You got to get ready. You got to show you're ready to perform and get everything at the title company. And if she doesn't show up, then you got to sue her. But in the meantime, you got to tell her you're going to show up and be ready to close. And if she chooses not to take the money and close the deal, then unfortunately you're going to have to file a lawsuit. Okay. So that's now the go forward plan. So now I've got to go finish raising all the money within like 24 hours, get it to the title company, and not be late. And if it's not late, then absolutely the deal's gone, because if I don't, it's like we've got a closing date for Friday and it's signed. We got extensions. There's no way I'm getting an extension. So literally, while at Owners Club, which is why I love this community so much, is like I had a couple connections that were helping me raise this money. Like literally while I'm like 1 minute, I'm calling this lady, negotiating, trying to hold the deal together. The next minute, I'm going to a room, meeting with some other investors, talking about, hey, here's the deal. Are you comfortable? Can you fund in 24 hours? But here's the thing, as we put it all together. So what I did is we got everything figured out with the investors. They invested into my fund. They wired money to the title company. I was in Phoenix, right? I signed all my documents in front of a notary there at the UPS store. I'll never forget it, at the Scottsdale Resort. I signed with the notary, overnight it, make sure it gets back to Wyoming where we're closing, along with my funds, right? So I do all the work, get it all together, right? But the seller is still telling me, I am not selling to you, Casey. It's a matter of principle. Like, I don't trust you now because you didn't tell me how much the second lien was going to be. And I'm like, and here's the thing. I came back to her. I'm like, you know what, seller? Since I'm going to concede and you can be in first position, and then I'm going to be in second, and I'm going to put my fund and my investors in second. And you know what? I'll deal with that. Okay. So she still refuses to do that. Like, she's like, no, I'm not doing the deal. Like literally up until Friday, the day of closing, I've already got my funds going. I've got my wire going. I've got all my paperwork. They're all going to the title company. She's still saying, no, I don't care, Casey. I don't care if I'm in first, even though she already agreed to second position. And in the negotiation, that is a huge difference in between who's on, like in terms of the lien position, who's in first and second is a big deal, right? So I conceded, gave her first position. She's refusing to do it, right? So I'm like, oh, what are we going to do here? Are we going to give up, or are we going to keep going, right? So literally, I'm like going through the morning sessions at Owners Club, listening to, some incredible speakers were coming in that day. It was Marcus Lemonis came in, some other awesome guests, right? So I'm listening to these guys, learning, and then immediately I've got to get back for my kids' game that night. So I drive to the airport, still working this deal, right? And when I get to the airport, so here's where it gets cool. So I get to the airport and I call the title company. I'm like, title company, do you have my funds? Can you confirm when the funds are in there? Because I need to know you have all my funds. I need to know you have all my documents, and that this deal, I have given you everything you need. So guys, if you're ever in this situation and the seller won't perform, you have to have your money and your documents all at the title company. So it's very clear if we go through a lawsuit that I was ready to close per the contract. So anyway, I'm calling the title company. She confirms it's all there. I'm like, okay. I'm about to get on a 2-hour flight from Phoenix back to Houston. can you do me a favor? She was great. The title company agents. I'm like, I know this is not your job to be the mediator to keep a deal together, but I need you to help me. And so I'm like, will you call the seller and let her know that you have everything in your possession and the seller intends to close. And then I did one other thing. I had my attorney actually draft an email saying, hey, we are prepared to close. If you don't close, we will be filing a lawsuit and basically holding you to the contract for performance. So she knew we were prepared to sue her. We got all our stuff in line, right? So then I get on the plane, right? Because I know I'm not going to be able to call anybody. So I get on the plane. It's a Southwest flight, which I like to joke that I actually had Wi-Fi, thank God, for these couple hours, because I'm just kind of plugging away, kind of just waiting to hear back something. Well, then as we're on the flight, probably halfway through, I get an email from the title company, and I should actually pull it up and read it for you guys. But going from memory, the title company, she goes, the seller says she'll only do this if you pay X interest rate or something. She immediately, but the conversation completely changed from, you know what, let me back up. Actually, before I got on there, the conversation was, the seller replied, she goes, the only way I'm selling to you is if you buy it for full cash. If you pay full cash, I'll sell to you. But all week had been like, I'm not selling to you. I don't care. Blah, blah, blah. Like no progress, like no give. Right. But immediately when she told me I will sell to you for cash, that's when I'm like, okay, we got a chance. She's thinking, right? So then that next email comes on the plane, and the title company says, hey, she is ready to close, but she wants the interest rate to be this and increase the interest rate. And then initially, now I know she's ready. She wants to do it. She understands what's going on. So I fire back an email. I'm like, I'm not negotiating the interest rate right now. I've already given her a first position loan. Like I'm not paying her any more interest. Like she needs to take the deal or not take the deal. And maybe that was too firm, but at that point I knew that she was going to take the deal, right? So I fired back to the title company. We're going back and forth on emails on the flight, still going, right? And then finally I get an email from the title company that says she's good. She's going to come in and sign and she's ready to go. But I just need this promissory note for you to get executed. So anyway, the plane is coming in and landing in Houston. I'm like still working. They're like, put your computers away, but I'm still working. Wi-Fi's still working. And I'm finishing like this last little document that I have to sign because we got to record. The last thing I'm going to do is let this lady change her mind. But anyway, I'll never forget that feeling. Like when I got that email, she says, hey, she's going to sign. She's going to agree. Like literally as we're on our descent into Houston. And I had to stay in my seatbelt, but I wanted to stand up and just like cheer. And I was just so pumped up. Like the people beside me are probably like, what has got into this guy? He's really hyped on this flight. But anyway, I'll never forget it. We held it together. I was on cloud nine. I went instantly, went to my kids' games, got to coach them in football. But man, one of my biggest highs and proudest moments. And the reason I'm sharing this story, guys, is getting around the right communities and the right people. It could be so influential, right? If I would have chose to not go, first off, if I make the decision to not go to Phoenix and go to Owners Club and be around all these high level investors and the right people, this deal never comes together, right? It gets blown up. I probably not even able to raise the money. Second thing is if I've not been through hard experiences of going through lawsuits when sellers refuse to perform and not going through that, which was miserable. It was been one of the most stressful times I've ever gone through having to do that lawsuit, but it taught me to where when I was ready, I knew what to do, right? And I knew to get my funds in order. And I had the right connections that I could rely on that were going to wire money on time. Because if my private money partners or my investors in the fund would have been a day late, there'd have been no deal, right? But we didn't give up. We got it closed. And guys, this is that 45 unit deal. If you're still stayed in for this story, this is the 45 unit deal on Lilac Way that we're doing with our fund. And it's extremely successful so far, bringing in multiple investors, buying a multifamily value add. And guys, the reason why I keep telling you about $1 million in net profit. That's how much equity I'm building in this deal by the price we bought it at and by us being able to go and do value add. Deal questions. I'll let you guys open it up now, but I wanted to share that story because, like I said, I shared that story last Friday, or that was it last Wednesday on the plane. I was sitting next to another Owners Club. It was Regina, and I was telling her about the last Owners Club, and I'm like, man, I need to make a YouTube video to share this story because I don't know, it's pretty. Hopefully, it's been interesting for you guys to show you the power of being around the right people and the right masterminds. Let me go through these comments, see if anybody have any questions. Fire them away if you guys got it. I'll stay on for just a second. We're also live on YouTube, so if you didn't get to watch this whole thing and you'd rather watch it on YouTube, go check it out. We'll have the full version. And anyway, and if you guys are curious how this deal's shaping up, let me know. It's we're over 50% past the renovation. We're already filling units. We're doing rentals. We're doing like furnished rentals, so it increases the income and the NOI, which is going to help our refinance, which will be really cool. But anyway, really exciting deal. I'm going to peek over here, see if any. Cool. All right, guys. Well, if you guys want to go back and watch the full length video, I encourage you to. If you're watching this later or watching this on YouTube, please comment like any questions you have or like any takeaways, and share this with somebody else if you guys feel like, hey, perseverance, surrounding yourself with the right people, it always pays off. All right, guys. Have a good Wednesday.